Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt like you've got this secret superpower for sensing vibe shifts? You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're constantly scanning the room for these tiny, almost invisible changes in tone. Like maybe a friend's voice sounds just a fraction flatter than usual. Or you get a text from someone close to you and it ends with a full stop instead of an emoji. And suddenly, boom, alarms are going off in your head, and you're mentally drafting an apology for something you didn't even do. It feels like you're just being highly observant, right? Well, psychology actually tells a much deeper, far more fascinating story about what your brain is doing in those exact moments. Welcome to This Explainer, where we'll be diving into the fascinating architecture of rejection sensitivity. Let's start by getting our definition straight. Rejection sensitivity isn't just a fancy buzzword. It is fundamentally a psychological adaptation. Think of it as a highly tuned radar system developed specifically to sense social distance. And it very often emerges in individuals who, quite frankly, grew up feeling like they were never really anyone's first choice. We absolutely need to shift our perspective right out of the gate here. This isn't just about feeling a little insecure, and it's definitely not some simple personality quirk. We are looking at the hidden, everyday patterns of human behavior to understand a deeply ingrained response to repeated social exclusion. Now, what's really wild is how reality completely flips the common narrative. For so long, the myth has been that high rejection sensitivity is just about being quote-unquote insecure or too sensitive. But the reality? The source material confirms it is a highly sophisticated survival mechanism. Your brain is a brilliant, incredible machine, and it has evolved this exact architecture purely for survival. You aren't broken. Your mind is just employing highly developed strategies to keep you safe from emotional harm. So let's break down the 5 major habits that reveal this mechanism in action. Habit number 1 is a literal hyper-awareness of social signals. If you have high rejection sensitivity, you don't just see social interactions, you study them. It's like repeated social exclusion essentially trains your brain to become an expert detective. You notice the tiny pauses in a conversation or this subtle shift in someone's posture that literally everyone else in the room completely misses. It's what psychologists call reading the spaces between the words. And listen, you're not looking for drama, even though it might feel super overwhelming sometimes. Your brain has simply learned through incredibly painful experience that when people start to pull away or distance themselves, they almost always do it quietly first. So you sense that quiet, growing distance before the other person is even willing to admit it exists. Then there's habit 2, what psychologists call over-giving in relationships. Man, we all know this person, or hey, maybe we are this person. It's the friend who always goes the absolute extra mile, the one who offers the most energy, the most time, and the most understanding, even when they are getting practically zero in return. They're just constantly pouring from an empty cup. But the crucial point here is why they do this. It really comes down to this intense drive to become irreplaceable. The psychology here is deeply painful, but honestly, it makes complete logical sense for survival. Overgiving is a learned strategy to fight off a deep-seated belief that they are fundamentally replaceable. By giving so much that the other person feels they literally cannot live without them, they're desperately trying to make love feel just a little less conditional. Okay, moving on to habit 3. This is one that often masks itself as extreme strength, intense, silent independence. People with high rejection sensitivity often possess this absolutely incredible emotional endurance. They're the ones who handle their pain completely alone. They'll solve their own massive problems without breathing a word to anyone. And honestly, maybe saddest of all, they celebrate their absolute biggest wins quietly, without telling a single soul. But why? Why are they so intensely, silently independent? Well, it's because they have simply stopped expecting rescue. In the past, the validation or support they received was just wildly inconsistent. So it's not that they hate getting help, it's a fundamental lack of trust that the help is actually going to stay. They've seen plans fall apart and people leave so many times that they've learned the safest route, the only route really, is to stay perfectly calm and strictly self-reliant when things go sideways. Habit 4 takes this self-preservation a whole step further, downplaying needs and avoiding conflict at all costs. This is such a fascinating, albeit subtle, way of ensuring you stay included in the pack. It's basically the habit of shrinking yourself down so you fit perfectly into whatever space is left over by others. You hear it all the time in these everyday phrases, like, oh, I don't mind, or whatever you want works for me. They seem like the words of an incredibly easygoing, super low-maintenance person, right? But there is a much darker, intensely protective reality behind why these phrases are spoken, even when the person actually has a very clear preference or need. It stems from the terrifying fear of being temporary. The agonizing logic goes exactly like this. If you don't cause any trouble, if you never complain, and if you simply don't have any needs, you are significantly less likely to be quietly swapped out for someone who is easier to deal with. This fear leads highly sensitive people to accept so much less than they actually deserve, simply to guarantee they keep their place in the group. Finally, Habit 5 flips the script entirely to look at what these individuals actually seek out in others. And what they crave above all else is consistency and loyalty. They rarely chase the loud, performative affection or that high-intensity roller coaster excitement that so many other people seem to crave in relationships. Because to a brain that inherently feels unstable, being chosen once means almost nothing. They require a very specific antidote: safety, honesty, and consistent effort. They need these traits to feel secure, and they need to feel consciously chosen every single day. That unwavering consistency is quite literally the only thing that can quiet the alarms. Decoding this architecture changes absolutely everything. Whether it's that hyper-awareness we talked about, the silent independence, or the deep craving for consistency, recognizing these strategies is the critical first step. Once you see the pattern for what it truly is, a highly evolved protective mechanism, you can finally stop the cycle of self-blame. I really want you to take a moment to let this sink in. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. Let me repeat that. It is not a flaw. It is a profound reflection of your resilience. Your brain did exactly what it needed to do to survive in environments where you felt insecure or unvalued. It adapted. It fought for you. So I want to leave you with this final thought to reflect on today. Based on everything we've unpacked in this explainer, how has your brain uniquely adapted to keep you safe? What invisible habits are you carrying around right now that are actually just highly evolved strategies for survival? Understanding why we do what we do is the absolute key to mastering it. Thank you so much for joining me to decode the architecture of the human mind, and I really hope this leaves you seeing yourself and maybe the people around you with a whole lot more clarity and compassion.